A few years ago, I conducted a video series interviewing different generations about the decade that they grew up in. I included my dad in the project, and I will never forget the day that he came up to the studio door decked out in his suit and bright red tie. And before I knew it, these words came out of my mouth. "Thank you so much, Dad. What a perfect baby boomer look." And I saw Dad's shoulders slump just a little as he said, "Jessica, I want to let you know I was very intentional about what I wore today. And that intention was not to look a certain part for your film. My intention was to honor you."
And on the other end of the dress code spectrum, we commonly hear hiring managers concerned that Gen Z is showing up for job interviews in what looks more like athletic wear than workplace attire. So, to understand the reason behind this choice, we hosted a focus group. And I'll always remember when the first person raised his hand and said, "Wait, those are some of the nicest clothes I own. My sneakers, for instance, cost more than anything else in my closet." And in that moment, in the moment since, I've wondered, how many of those Gen Z job candidates were actually trying to bring their best, and their intent completely misunderstood?
And that's what we're seeing across the board, from workplace attire to basic expectations and communication, is that even with positive intentions, so many of our messages are getting lost in generational translation.
And the fallout from this is very real. We're seeing 6 in 10 fire Gen Z employees within months of their hire date, while 11,000 baby boomers are becoming eligible to retire and exit the workforce every single day. Meanwhile, we've got Gen X and millennials in the middle trying to lead us through the shift. And 67% of companies are reporting generational conflict year over year.
Yeah, we have some good news. Our national study revealed that different generations do want to work together. They just don't know how, and we can help. For more than a decade, I've had the honor of working with boomers, Xers, and millennials and exploring how we can build a multi-generational workforce together.
And I've spent the last 10 years teaching and researching Gen Z on a college campus, helping them, cheering for them to transition from the classroom into their careers well.
We've brought our perspectives together to help all generations see one another more fully.
Yes, you can think of us as marriage counselors for different generations in the workplace.
I mean, we're out mitigating all kinds of conflicts, like the meaning of a thumbs up emoji. Does it mean an encouraging, "Great job," or a passive aggressive, "I got your text, and I am now done with this conversation"?
Calming concerns that a period at the end of a message does not mean someone's upset with you. In fact, in many cases, it simply means they have just completed the sentence.
So we're on a mission to help generations understand, appreciate, and connect better together. And so tonight, we welcome you to our counseling couch as we consider the most common tensions and underlying opportunities that we see.
Yes, so the road forward begins with understanding. So we're going to start with the basics. Jay, what do we even mean when you and I say a generation?
Well, when we study generations, we actually look back to lead forward. We look at the social and cultural influences that are impacting a group of people as they're coming of age. And these influences are enduring, and that's why they're so important to understand. So for example, someone who grew up in the Great Depression time period, who heard slogans like "waste not" or "want not," and "save for a rainy day," it makes total sense that a value of financial prudence and stewardship is one that follows that generation all throughout the different decades of their life.
Yes, and for the kid who got off a school bus every single day to an empty house, also known as a latchkey kid, it's natural to be a little more self-reliant and independent. Now, what this is definitely not about is trying to stereotype people or put people in a box. Generations are simply one among many lenses to consider as we seek to better understand ourselves and relate to others. So, how do these everyday interactions show up? Well, one of the most common places that Jay and I see is in how different generations think about hard work. So, let's head back to our counseling couch and unpack one of the most common workplace tensions that you and I see.
Work ethic. Woo! I'm telling you, this is a big one for the leaders that I support. They often tell me our generation works hard, but the next generation doesn't. It's a miracle if we can even get them to show up. You see, these leaders stay early, come in early, they stay late, and they do whatever it takes to get the job done.
Okay, that is a strong opening statement for therapy. And my students would say that they work hard, and I've seen it with my own eyes too. So let's keep going. Help me understand a little more of where these leaders are coming from.
Based on their coming of age experience, hard work is often associated with time and place. You see, for many of our elders, they had 50 million peers. That's a huge generation. That means to get a job or a position of leadership, they had to prove that they were the one. So often, if work started at 8, I'm telling you, they were coffeeed up and cranking by 8, and sometimes feeling guilty for leaving at 5 or whatever the close of business hours are.
Okay, well, my students would probably not feel guilty for leaving at the end of the workday. In fact, many would see that as what's important to keep them healthy so that they can remain engaged and productive throughout the long haul of their career. Plus, for many of them, they started their careers during COVID, so there literally was no office to go to. Their work had to be judged on outcomes, which could happen from anywhere. So you can begin to see why time and place would never enter the equation for them. What does it matter how long it took to do something or where they did it, as long as they achieved the results that they were asked to deliver?
So let me name what I'm hearing. All generations want to work hard, they just have different interpretations of what that means.
Yes, and we can learn from one another that sometimes hard work can and should, like getting there early and staying late. And oftentimes the outcome really does speak for itself. Great results can happen in the boardroom and in the living room.
So now that we're all warmed up, Karah, how about we talk about workplace communication? Because I often hear that the next generation lacks professionalism. So let's take an email exchange as a case study. As a very proud geriatric millennial, here is how I might email you, Karah. Hi, Karah. I hope your week is off to a wonderful start. When you get a chance, would you mind to send me Friday's report? Thank you for leading such an incredible meeting. Warm regards, Jay. Do you see what I did there? The warm introduction, sandwiched in the real request, and then bookended with encouragement, with just the right amount of exclamation marks sprinkled in. Now that is what I call a crystal clear professional communication.
Yes, and my student might say that there were so many words that they got a little lost in where to look for the actual request. In any case, here is how my students might write the same email. Subject line, likely blank. Body, did you post that report? Maybe no punctuation. And definitely no sandwich method.
You're stressing me out, Karah. I've got to tell you, different generations and other generations are going to see that as capital R, rude.
I hear you on this one, I do. Because when I would get emails like that as their college professor, I felt the same way. Until I dug a little deeper. So Jay, as a fellow proud elder millennial, right there on the cusp of Gen X, think back with me. What were our first experiences with written communication?
Oh my goodness. I was writing my pen pal in cursive, of course, and I would write the proper introduction, body, and close. I would store the drafts in my neon trapper keeper just so I could check them one more time before I sent them off in the mail.
Oh, yeah. And before Gen Z had an email address, they were definitely texting, sending short messages and selfies on the fly. You don't overthink it. You just send messages as they come to you with little to no expectation of formality.
So my intention is to be clear and professional. I'm guessing your students might see my style as a little stiff.
Well, it's kind of like one participant in our study asked us, why do older generations speak in such a suit and tie manner? To he and his generation, it's confusing why their boss speaks to them with a little more formality than they perceive they would talk with their friends or their family in a different setting. To Gen Z, that seems almost inauthentic.
I get that, I really do. And their manager might say, I'm not their buddy, I'm their boss.
Understood. So let me now name what I'm hearing. All generations do value genuine and clear communication. So it becomes especially critical that together we define what that looks like for us. How do we honor one another and our team in the way that we communicate? And how do we do that for our customers as well? The answer to these questions is probably going to vary depending on the industry or the organization that we belong to.
What is helpful to know is that one generation isn't trying to be rude and another is not trying to be inauthentic. And with that understanding as a foundation, we can begin to build out what effective communication looks like for us.
Absolutely. And sometimes that can mean more or less words.
Fair. So, when you were talking about the suit and tie communication, it reminded me of the day in the studio with my dad. He wore his suit that day to honor me. For him and his generation, formality is often linked with professionalism, and professionalism with respect.
And my student could understand why someone would wear sneakers to a job interview, because to them, that really is putting their best foot forward. They came of age at a time where athleisure costs hundreds of dollars, or are dupes meant to look like it. They learned that authenticity matters, that expensive sneakers do signal effort and status, and that feeling like yourself communicates confidence, even credibility.
Your student and my dad had totally different expressions, and they were trying to say the exact same thing. I care enough to show up well.
And that does not mean that workplace expectations disappear. Every organization has norms, and learning to navigate them matters no matter what generation you belong to. But if we only judge the symbol without understanding the intent behind it, we can miss the people who are genuinely trying to bring their very best.
And that's where real change begins, with one person at a time. A single experience with someone, good or challenging, can impact the way that we see an entire group. So what might change if we got to know members of different generations and really listened with curiosity to their stories and experiences? And what might shift if we made the intentional choice to see the very best in one another rather than the worst? Because if the counseling couch has taught us anything, it's this. There are real reasons that different generations show up the way that they do. And when we take time and put in the effort to get to know one another, what we often see as conflict is often just a difference in style.
Yes, it's not that one generation is right and another is wrong. We want remarkably similar things, like meaningful work, respect, belonging. So let's build on what's shared.
Honor what's different and bring our best together to create a thriving future, because we're better together and we need one another, suits, sneakers, and all.